I'm Christine. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Shelf. So we've kind of done segments where we've talked about real specific things from a collection or specific things from a donor. But today I thought it'd be kind of fun if we went through an entire donor's donation today. So we are going to talk about World War II POW Edgar van Valkenburg. Staff Sergeant Edgar van Valkenburg enlisted on May 16th, 1942 in the Army Air Force as a second radio operator. He was part of the 525th Bombardment Squadron, 379th Bombardment Group. His crew flew a B-17 bomber called the Bolevich. He participated in 18 missions over enemy-occupied territory, and for his efforts, he received a Bronze Star and a Distinguished Flying Cross. His plane was shot down on August 17th, 1943, over Schifferfurt, Germany. He was shot in the legs and sustained lasting injuries. He was sent to Stalag 17B, where he was imprisoned there until April of 1945. When him and the rest of his camp were force-marched 18 days to the town of Braunau to stay ahead of Allied forces, he was liberated in May of 1945 by General Patton's 13th Armored Division. So let's get into it. Got an array of objects here for us to look at from Staff Sergeant Van Valkenburg's donation. We have his Red Cross journal, which was a common item that we've seen before already. We've seen Mr. Heaton's journal before. Same journal, but written by a different donor. We also have some photographs, some newspaper articles, some of his drawings, a couple of wartime souvenirs he brought back, as well as some currency. So all of these items as a whole kind of help give us a really small glimpse into what it was like for Staff Sergeant Van Valkenburg before, during, and after he got shot down. The first photograph here we have of Staff Sergeant Van Valkenburg is him with some of his crew in their flight suits. And this was taken at Wendover Field, which is in Utah, where the B-17 bomber pilots and crews were trained. This area now is known as Wendover Airport. The second one that we have of Staff Sergeant Van Valkenburg is him and his crew on the plane. The Bolevich, which was taken on July 12th, 1943. And then the last one that we have, which is kind of fun, is Van Valkenburg sitting on some steps smoking a cigarette. And then on the back, which is really interesting, he gives us this kind of abbreviated timeline of his service and then capture. We also have here, like I said, his wartime log, and just a quick sidebar. This journal was conserved in 2018. We sent it off to Harper's Ferry. Shout out to them. We love you, Harper's Ferry. They are the in-house conservator for the National Park Service. The journal was sent because it had some damage to its spine, so they were able to stabilize it and keep it in a stable condition for us so we can continue to have it in our collection. So this journal is filled with poems, songs. Some of them are original from other POWs that Mr. Van Valkenburg collected, and then some are his own. So we've got a bunch of different pieces of poetry and other memorabilia in here, as well as some inserts from different things that he would have picked up and scrapbooked into here. We also have, towards the back of his journal, he writes us a very detailed memoir of his entire story of being shot down, taken to camp, what happened while he was in camp, and then eventually his liberation. So we have his memoir for the most part. He talks about how when he was shot down, he was shot by German soldiers in the legs while he was parachuting to the ground. And then how he was interrogated and the multiple train rides and failed escapes on his way to Stalag 17B. And then once arriving at camp, he gives us a pretty gruesome account of the rapidly deteriorating conditions for POWs in the camp. He gives us this really intense imagery about the physical and mental hardship him and the other 4,253 POWs went through until liberation finally came. His writing is very succinct. There's no emotion, there's no fluff, there's no anything. He is very straight to the point with his descriptions of what he went through. He writes in this very clear print style, whereas some of the other pages his handwriting takes on a little bit more flourish, but in his memoir he really wants to make sure that whoever is reading this understands what he went through. So moving on, we've got here some money. So these are different from the German Reichsmark notes that were specific. These were specifically minted for POWs only to be used in the camp. So instead of a regular German Reichsmark note, these would have been what was given to POWs. They could have earned these by doing tasks and chores within the camp, and you could only then use these as payment in very specific instances for very specific items. So we have a couple of examples of some of that currency as part of his donation. And then before we move on to some of the last pieces in the collection, I wanted to highlight a few of the drawings we have from Mr. Van Valkenburg. Specifically this one, which shows two figures sleeping in their bunks, and then the top bunk figure is dreaming about what had happened to him when he was, it's basically the memory of getting shot down. There are a lot of drawings like this from other POWs, as well as more like this from Mr. Van Valkenburg. But this one kind of really highlights some of the trauma these guys went through. He also gives us these really intricate drawings of the prison camp itself, which is really interesting. These really beautiful ink on paper drawings that give us an idea of what the prison camp looked like. So then we have a couple of pieces of wartime souvenirs. These are Nazi memorabilia, which is something that Mr. Van Valkenburg could have either traded for while he was in the camp or picked up possibly after liberation. This is like POWs here at Andersonville who would have traded for Confederate items, and then once liberated they would have taken them home as war prizes. The first we have is a Iron Cross Military Award, and the second one is a Luftwaffe pin, which was a German Air Force pin. A lot of World War II POWs who were part of the European theater brought back various war prizes as souvenirs, especially pilots and airmen, since they had a really interesting relationship with the German Air Force who ran many of the camps. And then rounding us out, we're going to talk about a couple of the little newspaper articles that I have here. If I can grab it very gently. So these are from the Clearwater Sun, which wrote an article about a Stalag 17 play that was put on in 1983 in St. Petersburg, Florida, where Mr. Van Valkenburg was then reunited with a couple of other POWs from Stalag 17 who came to watch the performance. We also have another small newspaper clipping here, which unfortunately I don't have the name of the newspaper since it's been clipped off, but we know it is from 1982, and it was a letter to the editor response. It is titled "Not All POWs Are Cowards," and it was Mr. Van Valkenburg's response from some comments made by the Department of Defense during the Reagan administration, stating that all POWs are cowards. Mr. Van Valkenburg goes on in his article to share some of his thoughts, and he ends it with, quote, "I am 100% disabled. I was awarded 8 medals for service, etc. They could have it all for proper use of my right hand and leg." So, like with every POW and every collection we have here, all of the objects together help tell us such an important story of who this person was and what their experience was. They hold a significance to not only their original owner, but through these objects, we are able to continue to share and tell the story of these men and what they experienced, as well as show their resilience and their strength. Every POW story is important. Every POW collection is important and continues to show us how their stories echo throughout time. So, we will see you on the next episode. Thanks.